An article called A Tale of Two Droughts. Let me just read you a little bit of it. Despite recent sporadic rain, California is still in the worst extended drought in its brief recorded history. There is terrible irony to all of this. Never have California farm prices been higher. Never have California farmers been more savvy. And never has farming been more central to a state suffering from the aftershocks of housing collapse, chronic high unemployment, overregulation, and the nation's highest sales, income, and gas taxes. Yet there are really two droughts, nature's and its man-made twin. End of quote. The author is Victor David Hansen. He's senior fellow at the Hoover Institute. He now joins us. Victor, as always, thank you very much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Larry.
Victor, this threat of rationing and all this stuff, when you're looking at it, it seems so complicated, all these different water systems. We live in a desert, and the water has to be taken from the north to the south. Is this drought and possible rationing something that people have caused because of stupid decisions, or we just live in an area where this kind of stuff is going to happen?
Well, there's two things going on. One is that we live in a state designed for 20 million people around 1980, and that's when we built the last dam. The Malones Dam was 1983. And then we sort of went to sleep and said, you know what, we have Silicon Valley now, we have Napa Valley, we're sophisticated, we don't really have to do that old 19th century stuff anymore, canals, reservoirs. And the result is that we don't have any margin of error. So when we have a drought, and we've never had 3 years in a row in recorded history since the 1840s, we needed more reservoirs. Instead, we did, in the second part, we added to the problem, but we not only did not build more reservoirs and canals to trap the snowmelt or the Northern California water, but we began releasing it about 5 years ago. In other words, these reservoirs in the Sierra Nevada can keep 2 or 3 years worth of water, but we thought that this little delta smelt in the Bay Area was not growing sufficiently in numbers, so we wanted to flush out the salt water, give them a little bit more fresh water, and we canceled irrigation contracts because a couple of biologists thought it would be good to do that. They went to court. They diverted probably about 20 million acre feet. A million acre feet's a really large reservoir, and 20 of them. And then we decided that our ancestors had written about salmon going in our southern San Joaquin Valley rivers all the way to the Sierra, so we thought, let's just let all the water of the reservoir go all summer and fall out to the ocean, and maybe these little salmon that we plant artificially can replicate what used to happen when there was 1 million people in California. And that's what we've done. And now nature's calling its hand. It's saying, you know what? You guys live in a desert, you got 40 million people, you should have planned, and you didn't. And so it's pretty unforgiving.
My guest, Victor Davis Hansen, I should tell you, is also a farmer. Victor, it sounds to me like just bad priorities. We're running around talking about Paid Family and Medical Leave Act and jacking up the minimum wage and building a bullet train as opposed to doing the infrastructure that we need to continue to make this state prosperous.
I think that's exactly right, Larry. It's symptomatic of this utopian mindset, usually from people who live from San Diego to Berkeley, about 40 miles from the ocean. And their way of thinking, we can have the largest use of gas of any state in the union, and we can have the largest reserves of petroleum, but we don't have to develop our own. We can burn somebody else's by importing it. Or we can, love redwood decks and wood floors, but we don't have to go up and salvage a billion acre feet that is rotting now because of the Sierra forest fires that we could use and salvage because we prefer to increase the beetle population on charred logs. So it's this mindset that we're sort of like H.G. Wells' Eloy. We're very sophisticated and refined, and we just don't do those things anymore, and somebody else has to do them. And nature doesn't cooperate with people like that.
Victor, 30 seconds left. What's the one thing we should be doing?
Right now, we should be rationing water, and we should be passing bonds to build 3 or 4 2 to 3 million acre foot reservoirs.
Sounds like you're not a fan of the bullet train.
I'm not a fan of it. No, I'm not.
And Victor Davis Hansen is a registered Democrat for reasons that escape me. Victor, we'll talk about that later. Victor Davis Hansen, senior fellow at the Hoover Institute. Victor, as always, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Got it.